Hi, Reza. Svariba.
Sorry, I'm muted. I was muted, yes.
Me too, me too.
How are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
Good.
We should talk. Sorry about it.
I know. We should talk. My teaching doesn't start until January 20th, and then unfortunately I get a little too busy. So if you have time,
yes.
do it before that. Just send me a time that you're available, even after in the evening. I mean, it would be fine for everybody.
Okay. Actually, this is an interesting area to talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've been reading this, so.
I agree. I know this is very good topic.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in just a moment. We're just waiting for everybody to get signed in. Great to see so many friendly faces this warm January morning here. Okay, great. Thanks everybody for coming. Looks like we are at a quorum. So we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Welcome back to part 2 of the randomized algorithms for scientific computing workshop. We'll kick off in just a moment. Sorry? Okay, we'll kick off with some remarks from Steve Lee.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. So the quick version of my remarks is that some of you may remember about 3 years ago in January of 2018, we pulled together a workshop hosted by Oscar to look at the use of machine learning for scientific applications. And we had, well over 100 people for that. And what came out of that particular workshop on scientific machine learning was a set of priority research directions and a real roadmap and game plan for what kind of foundational research we could do for using machine learning to enable scientific applications. So in a similar spirit, it seems very timely to do something similar, looking in the direction of so-called randomized algorithms. We have a lot of challenges that are coming up that are introduced by a new range of applications coming out of massive data and the use of AI and post-more computing. And we're all very familiar with the more deterministic approach to solving problems. So it seems like we're ready to maybe take a closer look at the use of randomized algorithms. The December workshop provided a boot camp that looked at the role of randomized algorithms in research and applications. But now is a chance to hear from different federal agencies with missions in this scientific computing area, and to make some compelling case on why this might be the next foundational research direction that we want to set a roadmap for. So with that in mind, again, I think we've attracted the right crowd, and we're very much interested in getting your input as to the role of randomized algorithms for enabling a new range of scientific applications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Before we jump in, I want to give thanks to all of those that have been helping out with part one, and then especially our breakout leaders for this part two, highlighted here, as well as the logistics and support people at ORISE. I list particularly Jody and Paul, who have been communicating with us a lot, but there's actually several others that are helping us out today. So thanks to them, and thanks to all our breakout leads, who you will all spend a lot of time with during this workshop. So let me just sort of remind you of the workshop purpose and structure. The goal here is to explore randomized algorithm as a foundation and key strategy in the context of scientific computing and more generally, AI for science, which is gaining a lot of momentum. Part one, which you were all at, except for maybe our panelists who watched online, focused on community building and particularly education about randomized algorithms. We had experts speak on the foundation side and also several panelists on the application side. Today is part two, today and tomorrow, where we're going to get your community input, which is extremely important for the process here of generating a report. It's a community-driven report. And that will be our final output. Similar in spirit to a bunch of different reports that are now listed if you go to the workshop webpage under resources. There's a whole bunch of reports there that's sort of the same basic idea as this report. And so in some sense, our collective mission is to sort of bring together a compelling case for investment in a very general sense into the idea of randomized algorithms, and have arguments sort of from a scientific need point of view, and then that there's some key research sort of untapped veins out there that need to be mined. We're going to share these slides with you just based on part one and all the input that you've given. We have a definition of randomized algorithms, very verbose one here, but this is just sort of in your toolbox to sort of work with as you're moving forward in your discussions today. By randomized algorithms, we're talking about algorithms that have some form of randomization in the decisions that the algorithm makes. And it can have various benefits. It could make it more robust, eliminating worst case sort of scenarios. It could make things faster. It could make things more scalable. Several examples listed here, and we heard a lot more in part one. And then we want to differentiate that from the scope of machine learning, which is sort of part of that. And they're big users of randomized algorithms, but it's a little bit different. And then also methods focused on stochastic inputs, which are very complementary. But these are, and may be part of what randomized algorithms are used for, but these could work even if the inputs are deterministic. So part one, we had a great time in part one. We had well over 500 people register and well over 400 unique people be part of this this workshop. We even had sort of statistics on how many people were there the entire time, and it was really amazing. And then other people watched on YouTube, both during our workshop and then afterwards. So thank you all for being part of that. We had, as I said, a bunch of talks on foundations, panelists on applications, lots of question and answer, and we'll have more time for that today. And I'll just remind you, if you're inspired after today's thing and you want to go and watch it, it's still available on YouTube, and also you can get the links from the workshop webpage. So today we have over 240 people that have registered. So this is going to be a big group. It's one of the kind of neat advantages about doing things online. There aren't that many, so we're going to take happiness in what we can get. We can get a huge community input. And so the 200 registered participants today will be broken up into breakout groups. Some of those are observers and committee members, so there will not be 240 people all trying to speak during the breakouts, rest assured, but it's going to be busy. And so we'll help you get through that in a way that will be really productive. So today we're going to have introductory remarks, a panel, as Steve alluded to, with 4 people, including Steve, from various interested funding agencies. Then we're going to move into breakouts. We're going to have breakout times. We're going to have a little break, and then we're going to have closeouts. And we'll get a lot more instructions on that right before the breakouts. And then we're going to do the same thing again tomorrow. Hopefully even have a little more time for the breakouts tomorrow, and no panel. So it'll be sort of the same thing. So this workshop is mostly about collecting your input. So thank you for coming today. So Zoom etiquette, this is pretty much the same as last time. So I'll go through it quickly. I just highlighted the changes in blue. So most of you have already done this, as I can see, but make sure your screen name is your first and last name. It really helps us in knowing who's out there and tracking you, your participation. You can also feel free to add your affiliation, your preferred pronouns, but at a minimum, we want your first and last name. There are breakout rooms in this, and you actually can just move to a breakout anytime, but don't do that because you'll just be in a breakout room by yourself. Don't go there until you're directed to do so. You might be wondering, like, am I an observer or not? You'll hear us mention observers. So if you submitted a thesis statement, you are not an observer. You are a participant. If you're a member of the organizing committee or you were a speaker in the first workshop, you are not an observer. You're a participant. You can speak. Otherwise, you're an observer. So if you did not submit a thesis statement, but you're here, then you're an observer. For the workshop itself, you will be able to post questions during chat, both during our funding panel and during the breakouts. That's a great way to discuss with a large audience. We did find last time that the chat, there's a lot going on. So our sort of random idea is maybe you can put a hashtag in your chat just to keep the thread. So if you want to name your question with a hashtag, we'll try to respect that. But I don't really have an idea. I love seeing all the chat, but it is a lot going on. All discussions will be moderated, so please don't just speak with 200 people. That will obviously not work. Wait till you're called on, and you can use the raise hand function or post a message into the chat to get that to happen. Keep yourself on mute with not speaking. Please show your video. I see many of you already are. If you would like, we invite that, and especially in your breakouts, that can be nice, and especially when you are speaking. And then, of course, you can always use reactions, thumbs up, applause. Those are great. So for breakouts, you'll get more instructions from Stefan later. But if you kind of wiggle your mouse around in your Zoom setup, hopefully you see either a breakout rooms button, or if you don't see it, the ... should show you breakout rooms. And then that will enable you, when it's time, to go into your breakout room. And then when you're done, you can leave the room. And so if you ever get lost, we'll give you more instructions on that. But just go back to the main room and ask anyone who has ORISE in their username. They can help you out. So look for that. All right, so how do we develop our themes for our breakouts today? So we collected inputs for you. So I want to say a huge thank you. There were 2 ways we got inputs. One is we had 30+ breakouts in part 1 of this workshop. It was huge. We had great breakout leaders who sort of corralled everybody in the breakouts to create these wonderful slides. And you thought, well, what happened to those slides? Then we got our amazing organizing committee to mine those slides for great ideas. And then they gave us a super long list of ideas. This is just a word cloud from this. And then we just used this word cloud to make, no, just kidding. We actually looked through all these ideas and we tried to coalesce those into a small group of breakouts for discussion today. But we didn't just use that. We also spent a lot of time reading through the 100+ thesis statements that we got. And I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to the care and thought that went into those, because they were a major, really, really helpful to us and actually kind of inspirational in putting together these themes. So, and we've, highlighted a lot of them for try to include them directly in the report, but hopefully you'll also say a lot of those same things in the breakouts today. So what are the themes that we got? So we're going to launch a poll here while I'm talking to get you started. So there's a total of 8 themes today. There's forward models. So if you could say what thing you're thinking to jump into, I think you've already studied these. That will help us later. So forward models of continuous physical systems, inverse problems. We heard a lot about those from the applications in the first time. Discrete models and systems, so biology, graph, discrete event simulation, experimental design and optimal control, massive facilities. So we heard some about that. This is things like the advanced infrared and electron microscope, but also some of the simulation data. Libraries.
Is your tummy hungry?
Software libraries. Emerging hardware. And then, of course, a very popular one, scientific machine learning. So if you can give a sense of what you're interested in, that will help us later in load balancing. I can see results. You guys are doing a good job of load balancing already, but we'll get more instructions as you finish. We're going to keep that up another moment. I'll show you a preview of tomorrow's topics. So complexity. So these will be math topics tomorrow. So today is sort of motivating applications. Tomorrow is math topics. So we have complexity, sketching, sampling, discrete sort of math topics, verification and validation, streaming and online methods, and software. So did you get that, Stefan, before it went away?
Yeah, I'm not sure who closed the poll, but we're going to ask everybody to revote, and then I'll close the poll next time I've got the results. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, yep.
I'm gonna recommend, so many of you who are on the breakout leads are the co-hosts. So just be patient with your mouse. And if you accidentally press the red button, it there's no way to get that data back.
All right, great. So so thanks everybody. We'll repoll, but I thought it looked pretty good. And also right now, if you could say what you're most excited about in 2021. Thank you for those who said the workshop. That was our fun answer because we knew you were all looking forward to it. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and move on while the polling is ongoing to the federal agency panel. So thanks to our 4 panelists who are speaking today. We have Reza Malik Madini, Grace Pang, Steve Lee, and Fariba Faru, and we'll say a little bit more about each of them as they speak. All right, so Steve will be our first speaker in the panel. Steve has been a DOE Office of Science programmer for, I think it's a decade this month. And most of that time in the applied math program. Everybody in that knows Steve well. Along the way, he's also done many other roles, including managing SciDac institutes and serving as actor director for most of last year. He's recently led foundational research planning in scientific machine learning and artificial intelligence. And he holds a PhD in computer science from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and a bachelor's degree in applied math from Yale. Take it away, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much, Tammy. If you could go to the next slide. And again, this is just an overview of the Office of Science. The mission is to deliver scientific discovery and tools to transform our understanding of nature and advance the energy, economic, and national security of the U.S. The Office of Science is partitioned into 6 program offices. The total budget is about $7 billion a year. And it covers application and domain areas and chemistry and physics and materials and climate, biology, fusion, high performance computing are covered across that range. Office of Science, as you may recall, has a number of world-class user facilities with accelerators and colliders and light and neutron sources, nanoscale research centers, and supercomputers. And why I have the arrow there is that the key role of OSCAR, so what is the role of OSCAR in the Office of Science? Well, we develop enabling technologies in terms of the networking and the supercomputing algorithms and modeling that supports the other offices in their mission areas. So we do that through our research division that looks at basic research in computer science, applied mathematics, and also a computational partnerships program for linking the things that we develop from our applied math, computer science, and partnering with other agencies in the Office of Science and elsewhere to enable high performance computational and data science. So of that $7 billion a year, OSCAR has recently about doubled its budget, and we're close to the $1 billion a year mark, mostly thanks to launching an exascale computing project. But we want to find what's beyond the exascale and what other new areas should we be pursuing. So workshops like this will help to mark that out. Next slide, please. So here's a perspective on the role of randomized algorithms for scientific computing. And this gets to the idea that across the different application domain areas, there are some computational grand challenges that keep showing up. And this idea of maybe not only looking at deterministic approaches, but more so-called randomized algorithms approaches, and Tammy gave a definition earlier. But the challenges that keep showing up is we have to deal with high computational complexity, maybe in the guise of NP-hard problems and coming up with efficient algorithms, high data dimensionality, coming from the data from our user facilities. Algorithm scalability is always a challenge, especially if we start looking towards doing edge computing, low power and high performance environments. And then just dealing with other numerical difficulties of discretizing a problem and putting it on a computer with ill conditioning and sensitivity and reliability. So to help make a compelling case for this, and as Tammy mentioned, we also have a resources tab on the webpage today that just gives a top 10 list, so to speak, of recent reports that not only highlight our mission needs, but also indicate the science and technology trends occurring over the next decade and thinking in terms of preparing for the future. So for example, the first one is an advisory committee report that was just posted last month, looking at laying out a 10-year roadmap and Office of Science initiative for the use of AI and machine learning for the advancements of science and the Office of Science missions. A lot of these reports have a tilt towards artificial intelligence, but in reading them, you should as you take a close look, think in terms of, what's the role of randomized algorithms in AI-enabled applications? The introduction of AI to application areas will enable a whole new range of problems that we'd like to tackle. And there may be an important role for introducing randomness to help address those challenges. With the scientific machine learning report that we did 3 years ago, that led to a number of spin-off workshops, and it's mentioned in some of those reports that I have highlighted below. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. Next slide, yes. So for the key point here is that foundational research is essential to administration priorities. Okay, so we need to think in terms of new high performance algorithms and models and simulations for maintaining US leadership. So the scientific machine learning workshop and this one is really taking a deeper look at transforming DOE's scientific computing capabilities, because the other offices and other agencies have great needs in this area. We traditionally looked at, with the first two bullets, using core areas of applied mathematics to do that transformation from linear algebra and UQ and machine learning. But this use of or looking at randomized algorithms introduces other things, such as considering communication and computational complexity and questions from information theory, taking a deeper look at probability theory and the use of randomness. Quantum computing and algorithms are inherently randomized algorithms. So just a greater introduction of statistics and probability, the way we think about the building blocks of algorithms is very important. So this is really about thinking about preparing for the future. We think at a very much larger scale. We want to think in terms of building these so-called ecosystems for science, where we pull together these facilities and data repositories and other resources and integrate that computing and data infrastructure and make it programmable, so that on the outer level, we can include AI and scientific machine learning, develop new modeling approaches for scientific challenges. But really, the core is coming up with the type of algorithms for extracting insights and understanding for this type of science that we want to do. So I see this workshop as very critical to jumpstarting that discussion in terms of foundational research for algorithms based on how people are seeing the future unfold. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We're going to just jump right over to Reza Malik Madini. He has been for the last 38 years a professor of math at the U.S. Naval Academy, and since 1996, also the Dean of Research there. He spends about 40% of his time at the Office of Naval Research, ONR, running the Applied and Computational Analysis Program, which is concerned with up-and-coming novel methods to solve PDEs, deterministic and stochastic. Reza, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I hope you guys can hear me. Let me know if you're not. Thank you again for inviting me to speak a little bit about what we are doing at the Office of Naval Research in the mathematics program. I left my cell phone on this first slide. More than happy to talk with you at any time on any topic of mathematical analysis that interests you, and my email address also is there, as well as the website, the ONR website that you may want to see, to take a look at, to see if you a bit more information about the stuff that I'm going to talk about. I apologize, I won't be able to participate with you in the afternoon on any of your breakout sessions. The American Math Society meeting is also going on today. Today is the first day, and unfortunately I'm involved in doing other things there in the afternoon. So I will not be able to join you later on. May I have the second slide? Thank you. So my program is called the Applied and Computational Analysis Program, and it's, and maybe the word analysis, which actually I'm missing from the title, is the key word in the title of my program. It's a very old program at ONR. It's probably 70 years old in some respect. It used to be a combination. There used to be a combination of numerical, numerical analysis and applied analysis, and about 25 years ago or so, these two programs combined. So the emphasis is very much on modeling, actually, as it turns out, and that's something that I would like to describe because it has impact in the way, at least I am thinking about how to incorporate randomized algorithms into my program. My program is very small. It's a few $1 million, and usually what we do at ONR is to compete for, not unlike what you're doing, to compete with ideas to get extra funding to support new ideas. And I'll talk about the randomized algorithm one in a second. But the core of my program actually involves multi-scale and multi-physics problems, very much related to the stuff that is of interest to the Navy, especially in the context of ocean atmosphere interactions. And that actually brings me to the issue that at least preoccupies my mind a lot, namely how to do modeling of the interface between two media, in this case, the atmosphere and the ocean, for instance. that is a significant issue for us to understand how nature in real time decides to transfer energy and information from one medium to the other. And when it comes to modeling it or computing it, there are still very major issues that are open in terms of incorporating them into the computational models we have. There's a program on dynamical systems and geophysical flows because there's a lot of interest in the Navy in placing sensors in the ocean and trying to take advantage of the currents that are in the ocean in order to manipulate where the sensors go in order to be able to interrogate as big a distance or as big a surface as we can. And then, of course, it's been for 70 some years a program on inverse problems and inverse problems involving acoustics and electromagnetics. So the emphasis, of course, is on sort of trying to prove theorems as much as possible, a little bit less on computation because everyone else in my building, which, the ONR building, which has about, nearly $2 billion worth of effort going on, of course, is involved also in computation. So my program tries to concentrate on sort of foundational mathematics, or anyhow, I'm putting it under the category of theorem, so to speak. And then there's a very strong connection between my program, which is, I'm in code 31, so to speak, of ONR, between us and oceanography and the mechanics department, two very major departments at ONR in terms of interacting and trying to collect, again, ideas to seek funding. May I have the last slide, please? So that comes to this issue of randomized algorithm, which we have a program of subnaval research called the Basic Research Challenge. It's an area that we get to compete with each other, among program officers. We pitch ideas to the management at ONR. This is similar to the MURI program, the Multidisciplinary University Research Initiative programs. Except that the only major difference is that in some sense I choose the team, or the program officers choose the team that works on a BRC, as opposed to the way the MURI program works. And in 2018, working with John Tague, who is a signal analyst at ONR in Code 32 in the oceanography world, we pitched the idea of investing some funds in randomized algorithms. And just to see whether there is, first of all, interest out there for mathematicians to work on this problem, and to also from perspective of applying it to some of the problems of interest to the Navy. And I've listed the seven projects right now that are being funded, and I'm sure actually it's, I see there are nearly 200 participants in this workshop. Probably all seven are on this in this session right now. But the main thing I can say is that the focus really is on doing randomized algorithms for linear algebra problems. That's one very major area, and the other area is, I think, to concentrate on to see whether ideas from randomized algorithms can support or help with solving PDEs, whether they are deterministic or stochastic. There's a significant issue still having to do with solving electromagnetic problems at very high frequency scales, and that's an area that at least one of the major areas under randomized algorithms that is being explored. So I think with that, let me stop actually, because I'm hoping I've not run over time, but I think hopefully I've given you an idea about what my program does.
Thank you, Reza. Next up is Fariba Farhu. She's a program officer at the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, AFOSR, since 2005. She manages programs in computational mathematics, and up until a few months ago, also in the portfolio on optimization and discrete math. She was 4 years a program manager at DARPA and in the Defense Science Office. And while at DARPA, she initiated programs in applied math and in the areas of uncertainty quantification for modeling and design of physical systems, equips, dynamical data modeling, model and large-scale nonlinear optimization Lagrange program. She received her PhD in applied math from Brown University and is a fellow of both IEEE and SIAM. Take it away, Frida.
Thank you, Tammy. You can all hear me, right? Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to this session. In fact, I was telling Steve that that's one of the best things to happen this early in the year, because instead of worrying about whether we're going to have a budget or not, I guess we do. Somehow I got signed. It's good to think about the future ideas in what we fund. In this case, computational mathematics. Next slide. Next slide, yes. So something about the organization itself, as Tammy mentioned to you, that I've been at AFOSR actually for some time. Before that, I was at the Naval Postgraduate School and being a professor in applied math. And coming to AFOSR was actually an exciting opportunity, and because it's first of all, it's an organization that is part of Air Force Research Laboratory, but it's the funding agency portion of it. And what is exciting about it is that it solely funds basic research. For those of you who are not familiar with the DoD type of funding, the color of money actually matters, whether it's basic or 6.2, which is more, it's still fundamental, but more applied and so on. It's very important because the kind of research that we are funding at AFOSR is very similar to what gets funded at other agencies, for example, like NSF and also DOE. Some aspect of it. I put the organization, it's an eye chart here, but just to tell you that right now, this is the information that within AFOSR, we have like about 36 different portfolios and are in 4 different areas. One would say chemistry and biological sciences, physical sciences, information and networks, and then engineering and complex system. I am part of the information and networks. I've been pushing for putting mathematics as the title for this team. I really believe there's something in a name. We used to have always mathematics as part of this group and collection of portfolios. If you look at those, it's a second column. You see that there are programs that are specifically in the actually identified as math programs. And those are computational mathematics, the program that I've been running. Dynamical systems and control theory. In the past, I've also been running this at some point, as well as mathematical optimization. But within that, you see that there are also programs like complex networks. Some of the ideas from the randomized algorithm is definitely going to be useful for this portfolio, as well as some programs that I would call them more on the AI type of programs, such as cognitive and computational neuroscience, trust and influence. The idea of trust here would be actually trust in autonomy, trust in AI, information assurance and cybersecurity, as well as dynamic data and information processing. Next slide. So this was really, this slide is really to say that I've been saying this basically to our management that how important mathematics and computational applied analysis in some is really important to the rest of the portfolios, and they have relevance to many different areas. Reza mentioned the Navy needs, and Steve mentioned the mission for Department of Energy. For the Air Force, there are 7 areas that may come across as more like technology, but you think of it as more like capability areas. And those are like hypersonics, actually advanced computing is among those, big data, analytics, artificial intelligence, autonomy, robotics, directed energy, and biotechnology. And you can just certainly see one thing that is nice about Air Force is a very small organization in terms of its size, number of people who are involved, and also funding. Our funding is basically a fraction of what ONR has and what Office of Science has, as well as what Grace is going to talk about. But what we like to do is that we are relevant to everything that the Air Force is interested. And my argument has also been that math is going to be relevant to all of this. So please do not cut our budget. So that's sort of my my motto these days. So next one. So my program, next slide, is actually, okay. It's in computational mathematics. I'll leave you to it. One thing that Steve had asked me was whether there are any kind of strategic documents from the Air Force or AFOSR where people could refer to, and I put them here. So they're actually, if you Google them, you can find out. And the program that I have is actually mostly, is computational mathematics. Reza said that his program is more on applied analysis. I would say mine is more on the computational side. But more and more it's become important that some applied analysis become involved with people who work in computational mathematics. And that kind of synergy has actually made the program a lot more interesting and forward-looking. So if you look at the mission of the program, it's very similar to what Oscar does. It is to develop algorithms for that are accurate, reliable, efficient for modeling, simulation, design, and decision making. This foray basically from just forward modeling to design and decision making is something that has been more recent, and I worked actually closely with Steve on uncertainty quantification, design under uncertainty, and lately also for decision making. And what is also very exciting about this all is that the portfolio has moved away from just basically numerical PDE, an algorithm for that, to other areas as well that more on optimization, statistics, and probabilistic actually methodologies. And I really feel that this area of randomized algorithm is a very exciting area. And I have to tell you that the first time I heard about it was actually from some projects that were being funded some years ago at DARPA. And then Reza 2018 told me that he just got this BRC. And I've been very much interested in to see how we can actually look at this area, because I think it's very exciting as far as algorithm development. The last slide. So these are if you look at the research trust areas, just like Reza and also Steve, the area of high order, high fidelity numerical methods for multi-scale, multi-physics systems is an important area. As you can imagine, CFD is extremely important for AFOSR, but more and more we have been also delving to other areas as well as, for example, materials. The complexity and model reduction has become also extremely important as we started looking more into optimization and design and even control of complex systems. So areas such as this is very important. Lately, very slowly, I've gotten into the idea of machine learning and data and also game theoretic ideas. And it's very interesting because we have actually right now a very interesting MURI. If you're wondering what MURI is, it's a multi-university research initiative, a multidisciplinary university research initiative that has been funded by Office of Secretary of Defense in basic research. And this is one opportunity for all of us to bring together multidisciplinary ideas and researchers. And one of them is actually on meaningful games. And the relationship between meaningful games and some of the development in machine learning has been extremely interesting and important. Also have a small area of research that I would like to grow, and that is on quantum many-body physics modeling.
Thank you, Farida. Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Yes, thank you.
Last but definitely not least, we have Grace Peng. She has her, is the director of the Math Modeling, Simulation, and Analysis group at the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering, NIBIB, within the National Institute of Health, NIH, in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Peng has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana, and an MS and PhD degree in biomedical engineering from Northwestern University. Grace, I'm going to try and get your slides up here. I think.
Thank you, Tammy.
And you should have control.
Great, thank you. And thank you to all the organizers who invited me here. It's a pleasure to be with you and to talk about math. So I've included a lot of links in my slides, and I just double checked the Google Drive slides, and the links are there. So the link to my program is right under my name on this slide. And so I do manage the mathematical modeling, simulation, and analysis program, as Tammy just mentioned. And within my institute, we are the Technology Development Institute. So our institute is focused on developing new technologies and methodologies to support the other 26 institutes and centers at the NIH. So the NIH is composed of 27 institutes and centers with a budget of over $40 billion now. And so our institute is really focused on new technologies and new methodologies. So the next slide, let me see, I don't think I can, oh, okay. So the first slide describes the mathematical modeling program, which really is to provide engineering solutions for theory-driven and physics-based and physiologically realistic and virtual representations of biomedical systems. So it's really promoting the development of mathematical models, mechanistic models, deterministic models, models to understand the biology. And this figure below shows the biology of the human body, from genes to cells to organs to tissues to whole body, all the way up to the social ecological systems going in the population arena of models. And so this really is the landscape of what we're dealing with when we're talking about human health and human body, and the different types of spatial temporal scales that are needed to be addressed, both for the models and the data, the software, and we've been promoting multi-scale modeling since the start of my institute, NIBIB. Since 2003, we have the Interagency Modeling and Analysis Group, which includes multiple agencies in the federal government, including DOE and DOD and ONR and AFOSR are involved. And we've been promoting multi-scale modeling since 2004 with a continuous initiative to try to bridge the scales, to go above and below the scales of interest. Usually biomedical scientists only focus on one scale. And so we're really trying to develop methodologies that go above and below those scales and go into spatial and temporal domains, address uncertainty quantification and sparse data, integrating data. One thing, so through these awards, we formed the Multi-Scale Modeling Consortium. And this consortium has actually dealt with a lot with the science of developing models and how to build credible models and the practice of credible model development. And so I would encourage you to go to our IMAG Wiki. It's the link on top, or you can do a browser search for IMAG Wiki, and you'll see our consortium there, as well as reports and publications, which are also linked in the slides. And you'll also see some of the activities, and you're all welcome to join the consortium. There's many breakout groups, working groups and other special interest groups for people to discuss important issues around methodologies, multi-scale modeling methodologies for multiple domains. This year, 2020, we actually started a new viral pandemic working group with over 100 participants just to start. And they now have over 20, 30 subgroups to just talk about various aspects of modeling for the pandemic and future pandemics, and not only talking about epidemiological models, but also physiological models, and try to understand how viruses work. So I encourage you to come visit the wiki and take a look at these this activity. The next slide, please. So one of the things that our consortium promoted is we have annual meetings, and the last in-person meeting we had in October 2019, we focused on integrating machine learning and multi-scale modeling for biomedical, biological, behavioral systems. The papers that came out of that meeting are here. Both Stephen and Fariba participated in this meeting. So I just wanted to include the slide so you'll get a hold of these papers to see the important concept of digital twins, which has been around in the manufacturing industry for, planes, trains, automobiles. And we'd like to bring it to our own healthcare and creating digital twins of ourselves, and to have be able to monitor ourselves in real time now, and to predict our future health. So I encourage you to take a look. Next slide, please. So the simulation portfolio at NIBIB is also about developing mathematical, statistical, computational approaches, but instead of trying to develop the models to understand the biological systems, we're trying to emulate systems dynamics and processes implicated in the procedures that we undergo when we go to the doctor's office, when we go have surgery, and we emphasize medical simulator design to reduce medical errors and increase patient safety. And again, I've included papers that are important for you to take a look at. Before the pandemic, medical errors was considered the third lead after cancer and heart disease. But of course, with COVID, that's actually bumped it down to 4, but it's still a significant problem in terms of how many people die every day due to medical errors. And so the idea of medical errors is that to err is human, and when we incorporate human uncertainty in our practices of making decisions or conducting procedures, errors are bound to happen. And so really we're trying to develop models to try to deal with these, essentially long tail occurrences of avoiding these these errors that, could really be life-threatening and cause death. And so I would encourage you to take a look at the portfolio. Again, the orange links are all linked to my program. Next slide, please. Oh, and this also describes a funding opportunity that's currently out on the streets for promoting development of virtual coaches. So this next slide is just an example slide from one of our grantees, where he's developing algorithms for patient safety simulators. And when you think about simulating or emulating procedures, we have some really hard math problems to look at how we actually simulate suturing and cauterizing tissues and the smoke, and looking at the different kinds of essentially high fidelity graphics for emulating things like collision detection and interactive in the interactive workspace with multiple sensors. And so there's a lot of things that could be done with algorithms for medical safe simulators. Next slide, please. The third program is the analysis program at the NIBIB. And this, again, is to develop theoretical, mathematical, and statistical engineering approaches to interpret the behavior of complex biomedical systems and its dynamics. So we're really trying to promote analytical tools. One of the big things that I focus on is the NIH Brain Initiative, where I work with 10 other institutes at the NIH. And we use a lot of what we promote is through the Brain 2025 report and the Brain 2.0 report that just came out this past year, and take a look at the funding opportunity for theories, models, and methods, which I posted here. I was talking with Steve about a lot of the issues in terms of pitting the sides of deterministic models with stochastic models, at the NIH, people are still siloed in terms of those models. And it'd be great if we could bring together people to make more hybrid approaches for bridging together deterministic and stochastic models to try to develop more causal predictions of how the brain works or how our body works. And so I encourage you to take a look at the funding opportunity announcement here. Next slide, please. The final thing I wanted to do is just introduce to you a new program. This next slide is just an example of what we're doing in the Brain Initiative. And Tammy, if you can click again, we actually, through the Office of Data Science and Strategy, we just had a data scholar join us to help us integrate theories across all the brain circuits in the Brain Initiative. And so that's something, again, that would be interesting for us to include more randomized algorithms to help us address all these issues of integrating models and data, imputing data and visualization to really integrate theories across the brain. Because after all, the point is to understand how the brain works. So finally, I just want to jump to, Tammy, the next slide, please.
Skip you
Sorry?
to the end, Grace, because we're out of time.
Okay.
But everyone will have access to your slides.
Okay. That's fine.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry for going over.
Thank you so much. Well, you had a lot to cover. So we're going to move into a Q&A with our panelists. You can, if you're not sure how to ask a question, so the thing that you can do is go to the participant screen, and then there should be an option to raise your hand. I think that's where it is. Or you can post a message in chat. And you can even say, please call on me from the chat, and I'll be happy to do so. And I do have questions if we don't get any from the audience. All right, well, let me kick it off, and I'll go first to Grace. There's a lot of attendees from the DOE labs here. And so NSF really never funds the DOE labs. I would love to hear about funding from your program or in general from the NIH for the DOE labs. And if they could help with some of these programs. So
Sure.
We'll do first a comment from Grace, then Fariba, and then Raisa.
Yes, so we have funded DOE labs. We don't have eligibility restrictions from the NIH, so you're welcome to apply. I don't know. We also have some more strategic partnerships, also like MOUs, where we do things with the DOE labs, but through our regular funding programs, the DOE labs are welcome to apply.
Thank you. Fariba?
Actually, for certain programs, it seems like actually interacting with DOE researchers is extremely important. And for certain areas like uncertainty quantification and optimization, I have really been hoping to work more with the DOE researchers. So there's no restriction. It's just that my budget is very restricted. It was wonderful at DARPA. But with AFOSR budget is very restricted. But I'm always trying to find out how I can either co-fund or somehow leverage the research, because for certain areas DOE researchers are among the best. So
thank you, Raisa.
I think similar to what both Grace and Fariba were saying, there's no restriction that I know of at ONR for us to fund DOE researchers. I was actually talking to my supervisor, Sandy Landsberg, that I think some of you know, right, who's the division director now at ONR, about this workshop. And she was, quite interested in learning more about it, which I think is a good sign to me in terms of once your report is finished, please share it with me, and I would love to share it with Sandy as well. And just like Fariba and Grace, yes, I would like to also find the right way to optimize in a way the way we the small amount of funds we have. And And co-funding is a very good way of going forward. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And then we have a question. Carrie, if you want to ask your question live. Hi, Carrie.
Sure, I do. So this was another funding question. Is it typical that you would have calls for proposals, and it's for the whole panel, or is it more interacting with somebody individually and saying, oh, maybe we could give you some seed funding to explore that idea, as opposed to a general call that you're soliciting?
Raisa, can you go ahead first?
Yes, yes. There are general calls. There's a broad agency announcement as far as basic research goes that ONR has. I'm sure AFOSR has something similar, but for specific ones like this randomized algorithm one that this BRC I had, yes, there was a special notice. One suggestion I would have is maybe we could have this kind of interaction going on later on, in terms of letting program officers from ONR, AFOSR, and NIH, for instance, just to speak to you in smaller groups, perhaps, that, you know, maybe it's focused on just brain research, perhaps, or on randomized algorithm, just to continue the conversation. And of course, you're more than welcome always to call and find out, you know, any of the scientists to call to find out what is it we're funding these days.
Great. And then Grace, can you comment? Do you have any comments on that one?
Yeah, so at the NIH, I would say 80 to 85% of our grants come in unsolicited. So if you have an idea, the best thing you do is to write down any draft specific aims and send it to somebody, a program officer at the NIH, like me, and we will then forward you to the most appropriate program officer and institute to find your home. So you don't have to do that work. So we do encourage investigator-initiated projects. The projects that I talked about in my slides are more with set-aside funds and special initiatives. If you do think that your projects could fit into those, I would encourage you to respond to those, but I don't want you to force fit, because everything is based on peer review, and you should try to respond if you resonate with what we're trying to propose. But again, just contact us with your specific aims, email us.
Great. Fariba, sorry.
Yes, my situation is very similar. I mean, there is a BAA year-round, but so technically everyone could submit anytime, but there's actually a funding cycle and timing to it. But the best thing to do is really to interact with the program officer, you know, talk to me. I would love to actually set aside funding for specific projects where I can have a wider reach to the community, but in the absence of that, this kind of informal interaction would really be helpful.
And Steve, did you have any comments?
Oh, just that, like with scientific machine learning workshop report, you know, workshop report coming out of this about compelling applications and needs for randomized algorithms, not only helps DOE, but the other program agencies who want to do foundational research in algorithms. So,
great. We also have a question from Ali Pinar. Ali, are you there?
Thank you. There's mentions of systems where
we can't really hear you, Ali.
Okay,
there we go.
It's better now. All right. Yep. There are mentions of systems where we don't have first principles. For instance, for anybody, you mentioned cyber systems, complex networks. Grace mentions social interactions. And do you currently support VNV activities in these areas? Well, we can develop models, but in the end, we need to verify and validate these models. So do you have activities in these areas?
In the area of VNV for the?
Or systems where we don't have first principle, non-physical systems.
For some of our programs, yes, we do. I mean, for example, for social systems, in fact, they will look into that. For biological system, yeah. I mean, there is.
Okay. All right.
So Ali, I just posted a response to your question, and the 10 simple rules apply to everything we're trying to do at the NIH. But one thing I didn't have a chance to mention is that our new Bridge to AI program is all about encoding ethics into the data that we will use to integrate for analysis and next generation AI. So encoding things like ethics will be the biggest challenge in the next 5 to 7 years. And so if you're interested, you're welcome to talk to me about it.
Thanks a lot.
And did either Reza or Steve have any comments? Reza, I just want to see if you had a comment.
Yes, there's a pretty significant program at ONR, not in my code, in what's called Code 34, a different department on biological systems. There's very small amount of research that I know of for social systems, but although ONR is looking into it carefully, as Fariba mentioned, there's conversation going on at the OSD level about how can we increase or enhance the level of presence we have, the footprint we have in terms of social systems. So that might be helpful in the future.
And maybe cyber also.
Of course, there is significant funding in cyber. Yes, there is.
And
Yes,
Steve?
and as you know, Oscar Applied Math supports activities in uncertainty quantification and V&V. Our most recent call in 2019 was looking at UQ for scientific machine learning.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I think I'd like to give a round of applause to our panelists, which you can do either with video or with these weird reaction things. Thank you so much. It's really helpful. With that, I think I'm going to try to share the screen for Stefan, and hopefully it is the correct version of the slides.
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to do is just cover instructions for the breakouts that we're going to be moving into directly after this. And I'll hope to end a little bit early. That'll give us more time in the breakouts, and you'll see the breakouts I think we're really excited about. It'll be good to have those extra minutes. Next slide. So the goal for today's breakouts, which are going to be different than tomorrow's breakouts. So think of these as 2 separate days. This is really now about drivers on the first day. So we're trying to identify compelling needs and application-based drivers for programs and research and randomized algorithms. And we're asking you to think about a few basic questions. We're going to provide some structure that I'm going to show in a second. But we're asking you to develop effectively a question about, why is blank a compelling need? How will randomized algorithms advance that blank? And what's the risk of not making investments? This is really a key part of the community input for the report. So think about this as forming, some of the structure, maybe a draft table of contents and outline for the workshop report. And so we're really looking forward to the quad charts that you're going to be producing. So the idea is to make a single quad chart for each of the blanks in your breakouts. And the breakouts are organized by topics. We expect that every breakout is going to produce at least one quad chart, but you may have multiple topics and want to segment, the topics that your breakout is addressing into sort of multiple different needs or application-based drivers in whatever way your breakout sees fit. So then maybe you might do 2 or 3. Doing beyond 3, I think the time is going to be a little bit too short, and we want to keep you focused at a high level. However, we're also asking for supplemental material. So it's going to be very similar to the previous breakouts that we did in part 1. We'll be using Google Slides, and I'll say more about that in the next slide, but there'll be an opportunity to effectively put supplemental material after the quad charts, and that's unlimited. So we're thinking in particular about potential graphics that might be used for the report, the state of the art, or nice anecdotes for historical reference, for the use of randomized algorithms in other fields that we could potentially glean and use for the report. So we really want you to focus on the umbrella topic of your particular breakout. Don't necessarily worry about what's going on in other breakouts. We're going to have a report out at the end of the day, so you'll hear about what's going on in those breakouts. And naturally, some of these ideas are going to coalesce, and we can merge them later once we're writing the report. Again, tomorrow's breakouts are going to be different. So this is the breakout time for these compelling needs and application drivers. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the quad chart. And so many of you who have been to these workshops recognize something like this. This is going to be the template that we'll have today. If you were an eagle-eyed observer, you'll see that the template was in the link for the breakouts that was shared by ORISE with the Zoom link for today. And so you can look ahead actually and see the template for tomorrow if you want. So we're asking you to, your breakout, to collectively fill out, one of these quad charts for each of these topics that rise to the top. The breakout leads are going to have their own way that they want to do this, maybe some initial brainstorming, and then asking the group to down select into some smaller number of topics in order to put up these. Everybody's going to be able to edit, so that is a good use of effective use of time potentially. That you might want to start already filling in what a prospective template could be. I suggest making a copy of this slide, pasting it in, and then you can directly edit. The edit links for your breakout slides, they're going to appear in the breakout chat. And so once you move into your breakout, we ask you to do that relatively soon. I'll say when, and then you'll see a link in chat from the leads. And again, just use chat or unmute yourself if you haven't gotten the link yet. Again, you can copy these quad charts in order to make multiple of these, so that you can copy the template, to make multiple of these quad charts. And another thing that we'd like to point out is if you hover over the breakout rooms that you'll see in Zoom, and I'll show a picture of that here in a second, you'll see that in addition to the breakout letters, so for example, BO for breakout 1 for day 1, A is on forward models. In addition to those, if you keep on scrolling down that breakout list, you'll see a number of sidebars. And so if your breakout or your co-leads would like to utilize these breakouts to sort of these sidebars in order to further refine slides or subdivide the group, depending on how you manage your time, that can either be a risk or maybe a way to sort of do some crowdsourcing and some parallel processing. So sidebars, you can see it at the very, very bottom over here. Next slide. Let's see, I'll say more about that. All right, so we're going to start in less than 5 minutes, and we're going to complete by 1:30 Eastern. We did the cruel thing where the break is immediately following that 1:30 Eastern time. So a 15-minute break before we all return back to this main room here for these plenary report outs. Every breakout is going to get 5 minutes to present their quad chart. So we're just going to step through the quad charts for the breakouts. And that means that if you develop 5 quad charts, you're going to have to use your 5 minutes very wisely. The breakouts, roughly, we're thinking about 20 participants per breakout. I'll say more about that in a second. And then again, you can add supplemental slides. For the supplemental slides, in fact, we're saying that you can add to these slides anytime today. We're going to sort of lock things down and download things sometime very late tonight. But if you want to add supplemental slides, after the breakout concludes, you'll have an opportunity to do so. This is a good chance for people to, if something is unclear so far, or they have questions about how the breakouts are going to be run, maybe post those in chat now so we can collect them. I'm going to answer in a second what are the breakout topics and again, how to get to a breakout. Next slide, please. All right, so let me answer first the question about what are the breakouts. So here again, these are the breakout topics for today. And if you click next slide, Tammy, we have the updated version. Okay, so these are almost perfectly load balanced actually. So the organizing committee did a fantastic job of mining the interests, I guess, of the attendees today. And so it is almost perfectly load balanced with one exception. If you indicated that your first choice for a breakout today was scientific machine learning, we'd like to strongly encourage you to move or consider moving to the massive facilities and simulation data, in particular this real-time and online processing of data. I think that's going to be a very fun breakout, so I'm going to take a solid push for E. In particular, the lot of you who selected scientific machine learning as your first choice, roughly half of you should move over to E in order to get a balance between those two sessions. The incentive for doing so is that these are really, balanced breakouts. And so if everybody who chose scientific machine learning stays there, you're going to be one in a large crowd. relative to the other breakout. So that's a further incentive to go to E and really have your voice and input be heard. All right, so remember your letters, especially those of you who don't have the latest version of Zoom or maybe accessing via browser. Remember your letters there, because that's going to be one quick manual way to get you into a breakout. All right, so before I go on, I'm going to ask Mihai if he has a question.
Yes, actually, for clarification, and sort of just because I guess as an organizer, I would be stressed about sort of like, getting input from so many people. So we're going to present in the 5 minutes a few slides, but this is not to say the slides don't present won't make it to the, in some form, to the report or cannot, right? It's just a matter of what we choose to share with the audience in this format, but that's not the end of the story, right?
Correct. So the slides that you're developing, those slides in their entirety will be used for purposes of the report. So especially the supplemental slides, again, that we said, those can have very useful content that we can engage. In order to share out to everyone what happened in your breakout, which can be very helpful for mixing in our breakouts tomorrow, which again will be different, we're asking the breakouts to just focus on the quad charts that are generated in that breakout. That's going to provide a nice, consistent, high-level overview for people to understand how these things look like. Sound good, Mihai?
Yes, I'm muting, yes.
Perfect, yeah, excellent. All right, so remember your letter here, and then we're going to go to the next slide and show everyone their breakouts. All right, how to get to your breakout. If you have the latest version of a Zoom client, then if you wiggle your mouse over the Zoom screen, in some clients, especially I see in my Linux one, and I think in Mac, it'll be in the lower right. And I've circled it there in green. It's those, those four squares that appear. That's where you can click on. If you click on that, you'll see a list of all of the breakouts that are there. In other versions of Zoom, I think in Android, it'll be over there on the left. So wiggle your mouse again, and you'll see that same signal with the breakout rooms that you can go click on. Once you go in and do that, you'll see the breakout. So remember your letters. Those are going to appear there. And I see that some people are already moving into breakouts, which is excellent. So click join to get into that breakout room. And if you need to go to other breakout rooms, meaning if there's sidebars that need to happen, if you'd like to have other open discussions, if you're not sure where to go, then we can go find a place for you. You can go and do that now. So all of you who have the latest version of Zoom, who see the breakout rooms, why don't you go ahead and move into your breakouts now?
I want to say something that was hard for me to find out. It's not the name of the breakout that gives you the button to join. It's that weird number next to it. You have to get your mouse over the weird number to see the join button.
And so, yeah, if you make one secret is if you make your breakout rooms in progress window large, then you'll see actually the names associated with them. But Aidan's exactly right. So at the heading of it, that's where you're going to see a link that says join. You click on that join, and you will be, by the magic of Zoom, transported away. But that's an excellent tip. So for the rest of you who may not have the newest client or who may be accessing from a browser or something like this, we're asking you to indicate, so if you can go back one slide, Tammy, we're asking you to indicate, or two slides, yeah, your desired breakout by renaming yourself in Zoom and putting the letter associated with your breakout. So for example, if I wanted to go to breakout room B, which is inverse problems, I'm going to show you again the list here in a second in case you already forgot. I would do B and then my name. And that way, the ORISE, Find ORISE folks can manually move you to a breakout as we start to see things. All right, so how do you rename yourself? If you go click on participants and you go find yourself at the very top and you wiggle over yourself or click the more button, you'll see capability to rename yourself. And that's how you rename yourself. So certainly move into the breakouts now or rename yourself if you're not able to do that. I'm going to ask Tammy to go back one slide, please, just to show us again the mapping of these letters over here to the breakouts. And again, if maybe you weren't here early on and therefore didn't express which is your first choice, it sounds like you can maximize your influence and input by moving into breakout number E, Or if you indicated scientific machine learning, please take a hard look at E and or move there. I see some fun things in the chat regarding generating random numbers to decide that probability exactly.
And then I'll add, if there's anybody, especially our observers, who want to have a sidebar or something, if you just put a message into the chat, the ORISE people will help get you into one of our open rooms, which are sort of for hallway conversations. So if you're going to talk to one of our funding agency panelists or something like that, you can probably, the ORISE folks can help get you into a room for that. There's also a room for observers. If you don't want to go to any of the sessions and you want to talk to one another, you can go there.
All right, I see several of you are renaming yourself. Again, just hang tight. We're going to wait for some of the people whose first names start with A, and then we'll start to see the lower part of the alphabet, and ORISE is moving people into the rooms as we go.
And then Jody, if you can, I'm going to stop my screen share when you tell me you're ready. And if you could put up this slide to start, that would be great. And if you don't see the breakout button, if you post for the room that you want to go to in the chat, we will try to get you there. So just put, I would like to move to chat blah. You can also rename yourself, as Stefan indicated, if you know how to do that.
Amy, which slide do you want me to share?
44.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm. And Alan, I see your message. Alan Ayala, can you say which room you want to go to, and we will put you into it. And I actually, because I'm screen sharing, I don't think I can put people into rooms. At least I don't know how to. So if we got Alex and David have some requests.
Yep. All right.
I'm not sure if you're actually.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think I have the privileges to do that either.
Just the host.
It's not
great.
But Zoom could have made it harder. They clearly worked hard to hide this button.
It's a new feature. It's a new feature.
Yeah, Tammy, I'm going to stop your screen share and do mine, see if I can get it to work.
Awesome. Thank you.
The good news is 85% of them successfully self-moved.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. We'll get the rest of you sorted shortly here.
Is that?
I see it. Thank you, Jody.
See it? Okay, yeah. Good.
And then in a couple minutes, we'll have you advance to the slide that says we're in the breakouts.
Okay.
Looks like Mihai's still here. Can we move Mihai? He's a leader. He needs to go to the
That would be important. Sorry.
Looks like Mihai's assigned to that room, but he hasn't joined. Uh-oh.
What is that?
It could be in a limbo. Sometimes you get to Zoom purgatory and have to leave and come back.
Yeah, I believe one of the biggest disconnects is whenever people are trying to move to breakout rooms. Currently, we have everybody who's either had a letter or I think mentioned in chat. If you did mention in chat and you haven't been moved yet, if you want to type it again, because I may have missed it.
And Andrew, when people click the help button from a breakout, are we going to see it as well, or just you?
Yeah, it's just the host.
Okay, that's fine.
There's a help button?
Yeah, if you go into a break.